program is brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Our relationships with money are quite different. Try to remember that one friend who'd randomly buy a pair of shoes without giving it a second thought, or how you are afraid of spending your own money because of emergencies you think might creep up on you. Well, these make some examples of behaviors or biases related to finance or money and are learned throughout our lives from either school, our parents, or whomever it is that has been influential in our lives. These examples are actually the basis for behavioral finance, a field of study that combines psychological theory with conventional financial economics. Needless to say, research from this field of study suggests that some of your behavioral tendencies might be causing harm to your financial well-being. Subsequently, understanding how behavior affects financial decisions allows us the opportunity to use our money better. So let us now understand what exactly these financial biases are so we can start mapping a route that will help us have a better relationship with our money with chartered financial analyst Malik Shehu. Firstly, let us understand what a financial bias is.
It's not much so as a financial bias, but it's more a behavioral bias. And this means behavioral bias is simply how our behavior affects our financial decisions. All right. Now, we all have different experiences, we'll have different backgrounds. And this form certain behaviors within us, right? For example, if you were born in a wealthier background versus a not so wealthy background, your relationship with money could be different, right? And then this forms a bias. Okay, so if you were born from a wealthier background, then that means that seeing 2,000 pula outfit is nothing to you. You will buy it, right? But if you were born from for example, a poor background, and you've managed to work your way towards, earning some money, now you have a good job and everything, despite having a job now, because you were still born from a poor background where you saw your parents, save coins and didn't splurge, you might also not splurge at the end of the day.
Can these biases be explained in certain categories, or are they just broad and all-encompassing?
Well, you can divide them into two biases: cognitive biases and emotional biases. So cognitive biases is brain, your cognition, right? And there's simply systematic errors in thinking. And this makes you more irrational. Whereas the emotional part is, for lack of a better word, you lead with the emotions. You make financial decisions with the emotions. Let's say that you see a product in the advertiser, and let's say it's with company X, right? And they do investment products. And you go to work and your friend asks you, Chomi, I've been thinking of starting a policy for my 5-year-old daughter because I want to get ahead of time in case she starts, high school. I want to have the money to take her to a good high school. Do you know any companies that can help me? Because you saw company X, floating the investment product in the advertiser, that's the one you're going to tell her. So that's called availability bias. You know nothing much about company X except you just saw them recently. But because that's what came to your mind quickly and recently, that's what you're going to give to your friend. So that's availability bias. Another one is confirmation bias. All right? Confirmation bias is simply based on your beliefs. Okay? If you truly believe in something, you will want to seek out information that confirms your beliefs. Okay? And any other information that denies your beliefs, you wouldn't want to hear. Now, one of my favorite ones is the framing bias and the cognitive biases. And it simply is how a question or how information is phrased would determine the decision you make. One of the mistakes that a lot of people make, when it comes to investment decisions, someone will come to them and say, I have this investment for you. And they would give them illustrations that show huge numbers, right? So because they're framing it in a huge number type of way, people would go to them. If another person still comes and frames it in numbers, but in less amounts, they're not going to go to them. So how information is framed or presented to you determines the financial decisions you're going to make.
Let us now talk about the emotional bias. Please give us some examples of what that entails.
Going on to the emotional part of things, right? A lot of times we humans are irrational. No human is 100% rational. Sometimes we feel certain things and we would act on our feelings. Now, one of the emotional biases that is prevalent in a lot of humans is the loss aversion bias. You don't like losing, do you? Right? No one likes losing. So because they don't like losing, they would make irrational decisions to avoid making losses. So sometimes what they would do is you've invested in a stock. You put 100 puller. Tomorrow it's 200 puller. Tomorrow it's 300 puller. Recession happens. It goes down to 2. It goes down to 100 puller. Goes on to 90, 80, 70, 60. Now, because you've lost, you don't want to realize your losses. Because if you sell, you're going to make a loss, right? So you keep holding on, hoping that it goes above. What if this recession has wiped out that company, making it obsolete? You still don't want to lose. You're still going to hold on to it. Now it's at 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. And then when it's at 10, you decide, okay, you know what? I've lost enough. Let me just sell. So because of that loss aversion bias, because you don't want to realize your losses, you held on to a losing investment. Another thing that you would see in terms of emotional biases, and this is very common, is self-control bias. A lot of us don't have self-control. As soon as you enter a mall and you just got paid, you are blowing your money everywhere. So self-control bias is simply instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And sometimes you would see that human beings make decisions that would allow them to have instant gratification and not delayed gratification. All right. And then lastly, one of the emotional bias I can give you is the endowment bias. The endowment bias is simply you placing value on something that you own versus something you don't own. And it happens a lot in terms of inheritance. Okay? When parents die, when grandparents die, they pass down their assets to their children. Let's say a parent has died and he's given the house worth 1 million to their child. And maybe the child needs money. He got that house for 1 million. It's worth 1 million. But when he sells it, he might sell it for 2 million or 3 million. Why? Because there's an emotional attachment to it. This was my father's house and I'm going to, sell it. It has value to me. So because it has value to me, I want to sell it for a huge amount. So biases make us make irrational decisions at the end of the day. But being aware of our biases allows us to make better and more rational financial decisions.
Speaking of being aware of these biases so that we can have a better relationship with our money, how can you use them to have that healthy relationship with money?
Speaking to a financial advisor would also help you. Right? Knowing how you spend money can also help you out, right? Because we don't know everything at the end of the day. So because we don't know everything, seeking an expert who knows how to manage people's biases, speaking to a financial advisor who has maybe been trained in seeking certain biases in clients or investors can help you. Because awareness is the first step. Being aware that these are your behaviors and being aware that these behaviors affect your financial decisions in this way would then help you make better decisions.